Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. A cheap lodging house in Victorian England allowed people to spend the night leaning over a rope for 1 penny. The guests stayed bent forward, using the rope as an improvised support to rest without access to a bed. The moment reveals the harsh conditions faced by poor workers and travelers at the end of the 19th century. The record shows young men pumping water in 1876 without knowing that the source was called the death pump because the water had begun to taste strange. Later studies indicated that the supply was being contaminated by materials coming from nearby cemeteries, which explained the change in water quality. A messenger dog leaps across trenches during the First World War in 1917, running between soldiers to carry vital information in the midst of the conflict. The animal crosses rough ground marked by debris and barriers used by the troops, showing the crucial role these dogs played in fast communication when other methods were difficult to use. Sacramento Street appears after the Great Earthquake of 1906 in San Francisco, with rubble scattered and streetcar tracks still running between damaged buildings. People walk along the street surveying the destruction, while smoke from fires in the background shows the severity of the disaster. The image shows Jim Jarvis, an orphan living on the streets of London in 1880, surrounded by city buildings that reveal the hard conditions faced by children without family in the city. He appears in an environment marked by early work, poverty, and a daily struggle to survive, reflecting part of the social reality of that time. An East German soldier helps a child return to her family in 1961, soon after the first sections of the Berlin Wall had separated her from her relatives. He reaches out to allow her to cross, while the barrier in the background is still low and makeshift. The launch of the Bumper 2 rocket in July 1950 was the first launch carried out at Cape Canaveral by what would become the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. The vehicle, the result of tests with 2-stage rockets, rises from a simple platform built for early experiments and marks the beginning of space activities at a site that would become central to the exploration programs of the United States. The image shows the Tupolev Tu-2 bomber fitted with the experimental PPSH-41 Hedgehog 2 battery, developed during the 1940s to test extreme firepower. The system brings together 88 machine guns capable of reaching about 79,200 rounds per minute, illustrating an experiment aimed at greater offensive capacity in that period. An Inuit man warms his wife's feet in Greenland during the 1890s, a common practice in regions of extreme cold. The couple is in a simple setting that reflects a traditional way of life based on cooperation and mutual care. The moment reveals everyday habits that were essential to endure the low temperatures that shaped life in the Arctic. Mary Ann Bevan, born in 1874, appears as an adult after developing a condition that changed her face and brought striking alterations to her appearance. She worked as a nurse before being displayed in public shows during the first decades of the 20th century, a time when physical differences were often exploited as attractions. A group of women marches in formation during the Russian Revolution in 1917, wearing uniforms and carrying military equipment as they advance along a street lined with onlookers. Their participation is tied to the effort of defense and national mobilization amid the political upheaval of that year. Workers move a huge fir log in the Cascade Mountains in Washington in 1905, using a team of horses to drag the timber over rough ground. The fallen tree has impressive dimensions and shows the scale of logging at the start of the 20th century, when traditional methods were used before woodcutting became highly mechanized. The scene presents a pyramid made from about 85,000 captured German helmets, displayed in New York City in 1919 after the end of the First World War. The stacked items form a monumental structure used to symbolize victory and to raise funds for post-war efforts. The scene highlights the Weeby airplane, recognized in 1948 as the smallest piloted aircraft in the world, built without a cockpit and with the pilot strapped directly to the fuselage. The tiny structure shows an intense search for lightness and simplicity, the result of tests that explored the limits of aeronautical engineering. The description shows scientist Bernard Vonnegut in 1962 holding a plastic block while an electrical discharge passes across its surface during lightning research. The experiment demonstrates how materials and charges were observed in order to understand the formation of atmospheric discharges. The scene shows workers about 200 feet above the ground preparing parts of the Hindenburg airship. They move along high metal frameworks while they adjust elements of the hull. The moment shows the scale of the project and the level of skill required to build the aircraft. The scene presents J.A.F. McLaughlin, known as One-Armed Mac, a fighter pilot and ace who led No. 1 Squadron of the Royal Air Force in 1942. He became known for continuing to fly and command missions even after losing one arm, using adapted controls in the cockpit. The image shows Mexican families during the Revolution of 1910, gathered in a simple setting that reflects the social changes in the country. People of different ages appear with essential belongings, showing how many families moved in order to follow fighters or to seek safety. Some of the first passengers of New York City's new subway system in 1904 sat inside the newly opened cars. People look at the bright interior and the regular rows of seats that symbolized urban modernization. The moment marks the beginning of a transit network that would transform movement around the city. An excited girl holds a small clump of grass that Ringo Starr had stepped on at Los Angeles Airport in 1964, treating the fragment as a keepsake of a rising idol. People around her watch the commotion tied to the band's growing popularity and to the youth enthusiasm of that time. The scene shows New York City streets in 1894 covered with large amounts of horse manure, the result of intense use of wagons and animal transport in the city. The roads are clogged with waste that required constant cleaning and caused public health problems. The scene shows a large number of telephone lines over the streets of New York City in the 1880s, forming a tangle typical of the early years of urban communications. The poles are overloaded because of the rapid expansion of the service. The method patented by Steinway in 1878 molds the inner and outer parts of the piano's side rim as one continuous component. This process bends several layers of wood at the same time, creating a strong and stable piece that improves sound projection. The scene presents the Convair 118 flying car, built in 1947 with only 2 units made. The vehicle combined a road car with a detachable wing for short flights. The moment reflects efforts to create hybrid mobility in the post-war period. The scene shows the Mars Field roller coaster in the Field of Mars in St. Petersburg in 1895, where the wooden structure is surrounded by people watching the new attraction, with sloped tracks and gravity-driven cars, revealing the beginning of mechanical amusement rides. Workers in a Rolleiflex factory in Germany in 1949 assemble fine components that make up the medium format cameras used by professional photographers. The parts are adjusted by hand with care, reflecting the high level of precision needed for the equipment to work properly. The setting reveals the inside of Big Ben in 1920, with large metal gears and internal structures that kept the clock mechanism running. A man works near the parts, showing the scale of the machinery and the care required to maintain the precision of the London landmark. A worker takes a break during the construction of the Chrysler Building in New York City in 1930, sitting on a high beam while he looks at the city below. The metal girders around him show the stage of the skyscraper as it rises. The image reflects the work at great heights that marked the era of the first iconic towers in the United States. The scene shows Dick Winters and members of Easy Company gathered at the retreat known as the Eagle's Nest, the former residence of Adolf Hitler, shortly after the end of fighting in Europe. They pose in front of the site as part of the record of units that advanced into places of great symbolic importance. Grand Duchesses Tatiana and Olga Romanov appear in 1911 during the period of the Russian Empire, wearing formal clothing that reflects the protocol of the imperial family. They stand side by side in an orderly setting that reinforces the care taken with the dynasty's public image. The scene presents the Dalai Lama at 2 years of age in 1937, in the period when he was recognized as the expected reincarnation in Tibetan tradition. He appears in a simple setting, surrounded by characteristic cultural elements. The moment records an early stage in the life of one of the most important religious figures of the 20th century. The scene shows Marilyn Monroe and Queen Elizabeth in 1956 at a film premiere in London, meeting amid royal protocol and the glamour of the event. The two stand side by side, contrasting the shine of Hollywood with the formality of the British monarchy. Marilyn Monroe visits wounded soldiers in Japan in 1954, offering support as she talks and smiles with service members in recovery. She appears in a hospital setting, surrounded by beds and simple equipment used in treatment, reflecting visits intended to raise troop morale in the post-war period. The performance shows David Bowie in front of a large crowd in 1983, with the stage brightly lit and the audience filling the space in front of him. He sings with a strong stage presence, supported by sound equipment that amplifies the energy of the show. The moment represents a period of wide popularity and cultural impact in his live performances. The scene shows young readers looking at Mighty Mouse in its 1953 edition, promoted as the first three-dimensional comic book. They hold the pages while wearing special glasses used to create a sense of depth. The moment marks an innovation in printed entertainment and the excitement for new ways of reading in that period. The scene shows the radio-delivered newspaper system in 1938, when subscribers received printed copies by facsimile sent during the night. The device slowly printed pages from the signals it received, representing an advance in the ways information was distributed. A Ford Model T is adapted as a small mobile lunch stand in Washington, District of Columbia in 1918, with a structure built to serve sandwiches directly from the vehicle. The automobile functions as a quick food stop amid the city traffic of the time. The scene shows Arnold Schwarzenegger at 16 years old in his first bodybuilding contest, standing with a confident pose and developing muscles in front of the audience. The setting has simple lighting and a modest stage, typical of the early events of the sport. The record marks the beginning of a career that would become a standard in world bodybuilding. A group of people waits on the shore of Loch Ness in 1968, watching the surface of the water in hopes of seeing the legendary creature known from popular tales. Gathered with cameras and binoculars, they reflect the enthusiasm that surrounded reports of sightings and amateur expeditions. A group of women in 1925 display elegant clothing as they walk together, showing the style characteristic of the Jazz Age. Their dresses have straight cuts, decorative details, and a light movement that follows their steps. The moment highlights the fashion of the decade and the sociable atmosphere that marked outings and gatherings in the city. A woman from the 1920s poses seated outdoors in an elegant outfit, wearing a fur stole and a hat that matches the style of the time. Her look shows shorter skirts, a confident posture, and modern fashion that symbolized a break with older standards. The image represents the urban spirit and the growing freedom that marked the decade. The scene presents an example of what was considered attractive fashion in the 1900s, with formal clothes and poses that followed the standards of the period. The look features structured fabrics, striking accessories, and carefully arranged posture. This record shows how ideas of elegance and charm were presented at the beginning of the 20th century. A geisha in Japan around 1900 wears a Western-style swimsuit, combining traditional elements with imported fashion. She poses outdoors, reflecting the growing interest in foreign influences during the country's modernization period. One of the first mobile telephone systems, developed by Bell Laboratories in 1946 in St. Louis, Missouri, is installed inside a car to allow radio calls. The equipment fills much of the interior, with control panels and transmitting units connected to the vehicle. The scene shows William Steig beside wrestler Maurice Tillett in the 1940s, a figure whose unusual appearance would later inspire a character that Steig created. The two pose together calmly, highlighting the athlete's striking physical difference. The moment records a meeting that links popular culture, sport, and the future creation of a famous animated figure. A 250 megabyte hard drive used in 1979 appears in a time when storage equipment was large, heavy, and required special installation. The device takes up a great deal of physical space, reflecting the technology that existed before components were miniaturized. A peasant family from Voronov in 1928 listens to a radio for the first time, gathered around the set with close attention. The simple room shows rustic furniture and clothing typical of farm life, underscoring the impact of the new technology. This moment marks the beginning of access to news, music, and information for distant rural communities. Men gather in front of a shop in Harlem in 1940 to listen to the radio, following news and music broadcast out onto the street. They stand close together, while the set serves as a community meeting point in a neighborhood known for its strong cultural life. An Italian shop in New York City in 1943 shows shelves full of imported products and fresh food carefully arranged. Workers and customers interact in a busy space that reflects the daily life of immigrants in the city. A grocery clerk in Tallahassee, Florida, in 1962 operates a cash register while serving customers at the counter. Items such as watermelon, canned goods, and packaged products sit near the machine, reflecting typical consumption patterns of the period. The moment records the orderly setting of an American store in the middle of the supermarket boom. A barber serves customers in a rural barbershop in Brittany in 1900 in a simple room with basic tools and wooden chairs. Men wait for their turn while they talk, showing the barbershop as a social center for the community and reflecting the customs of the French countryside and the daily pace of a time before modern city life. An image from 1910 in Korea shows a pair of children dressed in traditional wedding clothes with elaborate ceremonial outfits and formal posture. The details of the garments reveal cultural symbols tied to family rituals and social customs of the time, reflecting long-standing practices with ceremonies and arrangements defined by Korean traditions. A Mongolian shaman appears in 1909, holding a ritual drum and wearing traditional garments and ornaments that indicate his spiritual role in the community. He stands in an open landscape linked to ceremonial practices and beliefs tied to nature. The record shows an ancient custom that was part of the religious traditions of the region. The traditional way of eating herring in Rotterdam in 1937 shows a person holding the fish by the tail and lifting it whole to the mouth. This gesture was part of a popular custom linked to fresh fish sold in the streets and markets of the city, a typical Dutch food practice tied to local identity and to daily consumption of seafood. A young Russian aristocrat rides in a rickshaw in Japan in 1891, sitting formally while the puller draws the vehicle. The contrast between his European clothing and the traditional Japanese outfit of the runner highlights the meeting of cultures during international travel of that era. Children cover their father with sand in 1915 on a beach where families enjoy a day outdoors. The man is left with only his head showing while the children shape the mound of sand around him, a light-hearted and common game of the time that portrays simple leisure and family life. Riders of high-wheel bicycles, known as penny-farthings, appear in an extreme demonstration at the end of the 1800s. The people balance on tall, unstable frames, reflecting the spirit of experimentation and daring that was common in the early forms of cycling. A cook prepares a doner kebab in the Ottoman Empire in 1855, using a vertical spit that turns slowly over the fire. The stacked layers of meat show a technique that would become traditional and widely spread over the years. The scene presents Alfred Hitchcock in 1964 imitating musician Ringo Starr, adopting the hairstyle and the characteristic expression of the member of the Beatles. The impersonation plays with the contrast between the director and the rising pop figure and shows how the group's cultural influence shaped humor and public appearances in the 1960s. Mickey Rooney and Bette Davis are crowned King and Queen of the Movies in 1941, a title given because of their popularity and prominence in Hollywood productions. They wear crowns and ceremonial sashes representing the glamour tied to the film industry of the period. The scene shows Miss America in 1920, wearing an elegant dress and a delicate crown during the early years of the national pageant, at a time when the event was beginning to gain public attention. She poses with a confident stance, representing the standards of beauty and presentation for women at that time. Marilyn Monroe in 1955 appears with almost no makeup, showing a face more natural than the one seen in her publicity photographs. She has a calm expression and soft features that reveal a more everyday way of presenting herself to the public. A father helps his son feed a giraffe in London in the 1950s, holding the food while the child reaches out with curiosity. The animal approaches calmly, highlighting the close interaction that was allowed in parks and zoos at the time. A vintage telephone table with built-in seat shows a rotary telephone resting on a small side surface next to a padded yellow chair. The set has a slim metal frame and a design typical of the middle of the last century, created to provide a place for the person who answered calls at home. A classroom in New York City in 1888 shows rows of desks and children seated under the supervision of a teacher. The room has blackboards, simple materials, and natural light, reflecting the teaching methods of the period as urban education began to organize itself with discipline and structured rooms at the end of the 19th century. A Bedouin mother in Saudi Arabia in 1948 wears traditional clothing and carries her child close to her body. The details of her dress and ornaments reveal elements characteristic of nomadic life in the desert. The moment shows everyday aspects of family care and cultural identity in the region at that time. Children play in the streets of Berlin in 1927 around a public fountain, using buckets and sprays of water as part of their fun. They are barefoot and simply dressed, reflecting city life before playgrounds and formal recreation areas became common. A boy receives a new pair of shoes at an orphanage in Austria in 1946, holding them with a quiet look of joy after years of post-war scarcity. The modest room and simple clothing reflect the hardships faced by children in that period. The scene shows Bruce and Linda Lee posing with their children, Brandon on the left and Shannon, during the 1960s in a simple family setting. They are gathered in a relaxed way, reflecting home life before Bruce Lee gained worldwide recognition as a martial arts and film icon. The scene shows a family gathered in the living room during the 1950s, watching a cabinet television with a small screen placed as the center of the room. Adults and children look at the broadcast image while furniture, books, and household objects complete the setting. The scene shows an English cyclist in 1926 guiding a baby carriage attached to the frame of her bicycle, while the baby lies inside the covered cradle. She pedals with a firm posture, indicating that the setup was adapted for longer rides during outings and competitions of the cycling club. The scene shows a snowman in Istanbul in 1929, built during an unusual winter in the city and drawing the attention of residents. The figure is shaped with simple features and stands in an urban space where snowfall was rare. Learning practical household skills gained importance in 1919, when young people were taught to sew, cook, and keep a home as part of their education. Classes took place in simple rooms with basic tools, reflecting the need for self-sufficiency after years of hardship. The scene shows a fountain in Detroit that about 104 years ago was left running through the winter and eventually formed an ice structure about 30 feet high. Layers built up slowly as the water froze around the spray, creating an impressive shape in the intense cold. Albert Einstein stands next to his wife Elsa Einstein in a quiet moment that shows their life together away from academic settings. They wear formal clothes of the period, reflecting the social habits of the early 20th century, and the scene presents the everyday side of a world-famous scientist together with his partner. Teenagers at the Philadelphia Arena in 1957 watch an Elvis Presley concert, reacting with excitement while the singer is at the height of rock and roll. Bright faces, fashionable clothes, and expressions of euphoria reveal the cultural impact that his music had on young people. The photograph shows a dog belonging to a military unit in France in 1915, posing beside soldiers who treated it as an official part of the group. The animal wears simple items that suggest its symbolic role within the unit, reflecting the custom of including dogs as companions during the conflict. The scene shows workers building the GPO Tower in London in 1964, standing on tall structures that shape the building. They adjust metal pieces as the tower takes form as a future landmark of communications. The moment reflects the fast pace of urban modernization in that period. A wagon caravan gathers on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado at the end of the 1800s, while travelers arrange supplies and animals before moving on. The lined-up wagons reveal the slow and shared pace of journeys that cross the interior of the country. A motorhome with trailer from around 1922 is adapted from an automobile to allow long trips with shelter and storage space. The combination shows compact furniture and an improvised structure, reflecting early attempts to create homes on wheels. A camera equipped with flash accessories appears in 1931, with detachable bulbs fixed to the sides to produce strong light for indoor photographs. The equipment shows an early phase of artificial lighting solutions when photographers depended on bulky single-use devices. The boxer Fred Bretonel appears at 15 years old in 1920, still young in the sport and beginning to train for competitions. A second image shows him at 23 in 1928 with a more defined body and a more confident stance in the ring. The contrast reveals the development of an athlete in a phase of growth and affirmation in his career. A milkman makes a delivery at a house door during the 1950s or 1960s, carrying glass bottles of milk and other products. The woman accepts the delivery and offers a slice of homemade pie as a thank you for the visit, representing a common custom of the time, when home delivery was part of the daily routine of many families. The text refers to a couple posing on their 1947 Chevrolet during a date, and then repeating the same pose 63 years later. The imagined image would compare the classic car with the lasting strength of their relationship over the decades. The idea highlights shared memories, longevity, and the bond kept between people and the meaningful objects of their youth. A mask created in 1937 to hide facial expressions during poker appears with a rigid surface and a shape designed to prevent emotions from being seen. The accessory was used in social games in which a neutral look gave an advantage. A player known for his exceptional skill as a catcher at the start of the 1900s appears in an era when glove sizes were not yet standardized. He wears simple, lightly padded gear, reflecting the conditions of baseball in that transitional moment. Four men enjoy themselves while they pose for a photograph in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, around 1900, creating a light-hearted image in the midst of daily life. They adopt relaxed poses that contrast with the more serious style of most photographs from that period. Three newborn babies are presented as triplets in New York City in 1946, surprising the family with the unexpected arrival of several children at once. The little ones lie side by side, showing the care required in a time when multiple births were less common and demanded special attention. Twin brothers in 1890 show a single mustache that stretches from one face to the other, giving the impression that they are joined by their own facial hair. They pose side by side in clothing typical of the period, highlighting the unusual and creative nature of the style. The scene records a curious moment that reveals the fashions and habits of the time. A collective shaving machine created in the 19th century was designed to serve several people at the same time with blades arranged in a row. The device reflects attempts to mechanize daily tasks before personal grooming tools became widespread. This moment illustrates a phase of technological experimentation aimed at speeding up personal care in that era. An indoor scene from the 1860s shows a home filled with objects that reveal the daily habits of the period, such as wooden furniture, hand tools, and simple lighting. The people present occupy the space calmly, reflecting family routines before modern technologies arrived.